The audacity.
All of the audacity, how dare she?
Apologize.
This is why we choose the bear.
Nothing should surprise us.
Everything she does is weird.
We do like a man with follow through.
He does not have good energy.
Gee, I wonder why you're not worried, buddy.
You owe me sex, bitch.
Here's the thing. Like, bitch. So sick of my Goodreads not really
Doing
connecting
anything?
to my Kindle anymore since Kindle decided that it's not important.
Which is wild because isn't Goodreads owned by Amazon? So,
Doesn't make any sense.
hello.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm here. Welcome to the end of September. And because it's fall, it's pumpkin beer.
Gross.
And it's got caramel in it. Spencer likes it, but he says it's a little too sweet for him, so I might like it. I haven't had it yet.
Oh, you haven't tried it yet. I was just about to say, isn't it a little early for that? But
It's mid-September.
I meant in the morning because it still felt kind of like morning in
It's
my
almost
head.
2 o'clock in the
I know.
afternoon.
I know. I added 2 ones where the clock was on there, and I was like, it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, Crystal. This isn't a little early. I mean, I'm not trying to be judgy. You do you. You can drink at 8 if you want, but like,
Listen, you say you don't want to be judgy, but that was the most judgy.
I was just like, wow,
You judge me all the time. It's fine.
it's a gift. I'm a judgy bitch, and you appreciate it when I'm judging other people. So
Well,
just like
yeah,
I do you. So
that's funny.
this is why I call you when I'm like, all right, I need you to convince me not to do something so that you can be the judgy bitch back to me.
Oh my God, I have a story to tell you. And
Uh-oh.
basically, this whole first section is just basically going to be us talking, which has happened every other time. So, messaged me the other day and
Okay.
he's like, I have an Amazon story for you. He got a delivery from Amazon, and then all of a sudden, the cat's missing. And they're like, has anyone seen the barn cat? By the way, this cat was supposed to go the next day to get chipped. So it was not chipped and it wasn't collared because it's a barn cat.
Right.
Trust me, it gets crazier because your brain already went where my brain went. And so they couldn't find it, couldn't find it, couldn't find it. They ended up trying to contact the station and they contacted the driver, and the driver's like, nope, I don't have a cat in my van at all. Like, because their thought too is maybe the cat got into the van.
Right.
So now they're panicking and they're like, fuck, maybe the cat got into the van and out at another stop. So then his mom posted in a local Facebook group being like, hey, has anyone seen this cat? Blah, blah, blah. Didn't mention anything about Amazon, like nothing. Just was like, our cat's missing, blah, blah, blah. A neighbor was like, what time did this happen? Because I saw a delivery driver with the cat playing with the cat on his dashboard. And they're like, are you fucking kidding me? So,
So
and
did
this was
they not have cameras in their vans?
there's cameras in the vans, but they're not active all the time. They really only turn on if you do something wrong.
Gosh.
So now they're like, what the fuck? Because they had already talked to the DSP owner. The owner talked to the employee. The employee was like, no. So they call the DSP owner back and was like, hey, like, we have a few witnesses that say they saw the cat in the driver's van. Here's the problem. The driver went on vacation and was in New Jersey and brought the cat with him to New Jersey. So the driver drove from New Jersey back to New Hampshire, brought the cat back. DSP fired him instantly and blacklisted him, so he cannot be a driver for Amazon. They finally got the fucking cat back though. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, if I'm gonna go to a house in the middle of the woods and I see cats, I'm not gonna be like, oh, these are abandoned cats.
I just don't understand why someone would take an animal from someone's property.
I don't know.
Is the cat
Bro.
okay?
Yeah, the cat's fine.
That's wild.
Bro.
Well,
That's crazy.
obviously it was a man
Anyways.
because men are wild and insane. Case in point, today's topic.
I love we can try so hard to connect everything together and we just make it happen no matter what.
We try so hard.
So this man was also wild.
He didn't steal any cats, though.
No, but he stole
Just
other
people.
things
Yeah.
and a pearl necklace
Yep.
and then gave it
Yeah.
back to her multiple times.
This week we read a duet. We read The Possessing Her Duet by Morgan Bridges. Book
Because we
one is
decided, oops, sorry, because we decided to end out the month with a bang.
book one is Once You're Mine, and book two is Now You're Mine. And yep, this is our last book of September. And after that, we have some holiday shenanigans ready to go. So, we're going to start with Once You're Mine, which is the first book, and it is about Hayden and Callista. Hayden is watching over the funeral of his latest victim. He's finding peace in the last part of his ritual as yet another vile person is laid to rest, this one a senator. His gaze is particularly pulled toward the only living relative of the deceased. Callista was the man's daughter and is the only one who has not shed a tear yet. I mean, I don't cry either because I'm heartless, but that's for another day. Hayden waits and watches, and it's not until every other mourner has left that Callista allows herself to break down. And that's where the connection stops. He is perplexed by her behavior, deviating from the norm that he has seen, especially when it comes to upper class families like hers who prefer to perform for an audience. It's almost ruining this for him. The audacity.
All of the audacity, how dare she?
Thwarting his satisfaction. And Callista is the reason. How dare she?
How dare she?
She's a mystery and a problem. He needs to solve it. And worse, her tears are almost making him feel something. 4 weeks later, we find Callista at work, but she's taking a break to meet with a private investigator she hired to look into her father's murder. The man is having trouble finding any leads, and Callista is having trouble coming up with money for more of his time. Seems her father had racked up quite the debts. Hayden has been obsessing over Callista for the past month. What made her act different than others? Why her tears almost affected him? After the murder and surrounding scandal, apparently the senator was on trial before he died. Callista tried her best not to be easy to find. She shut down her social media, she moved, she doesn't even have a cell phone anymore, well, mostly because she can't afford it.
Yeah, I feel that to the core.
She quite had a fall from grace.
That shit is expensive.
It is expensive. Hayden didn't want to lose track of her because of all this, so he had a hand in securing her a job at the Sugar Cube. Hayden follows the PI from the coffee shop and corners him, demanding the info that he has. The PI reaches for his gun, trying to threaten Hayden, but Hayden just grabs the man by the neck and takes his weapon from him. The PI tells him to take the flash drive in his left pocket. Hayden tells the man he's taking over the case, not to contact Callista again. Callista is heading back to the counter when a man walks in that she recognizes from the courtroom during her father's trial. He was the prosecuting attorney. She remembers him because his cold stare gives her the chills. Her best friend Harper takes his order and he gives the name Bennett for his cup. Callista takes the next group of people, a particularly gruff man, making her nervous. His clothes are a bit dirty, and she has some clear issues that we haven't fully dove into just yet. And honestly, we don't really at all throughout the
I was
rest of
just
this
gonna say
book
we don't get any information about any of
as
that
to why
unless
she
I had
feels
missed it.
no, as to why she feels the need to be clean at all times, and things that are dirty make her so nervous that she needs to clean. Yeah, we have
Yeah,
not. I psychologically think it is from
the
the
that
event that
event.
takes place, but it's just never spelled out or talked about. So it makes sense, but I wish we had dove into it a little. Anywho, he's loud and he's gruff, and Callista accidentally spills his drink. He's angry, slamming the counter and swearing at her while she apologizes. The man isn't having it. When Bennett comes over and says, "Apologize," and the room goes silent. Well, I mean, it would if some man just came over and went, "Apologize."
Your man voice is terrifying.
And terrible.
Hmm.
Yeah. The gruff
You
guy,
said it.
the gruff Guy is basically all like, "What the hell? Who are you?" And Bennett takes off his jacket and hands it to Callista, then takes off his cufflinks one at a time, passing those to her as well, so that he can roll up his sleeves. The guy's like, "What are you gonna do?" "Whatever, man." And Bennett nods and then snatches the man by the throat and squeezes. He says, if the next words aren't an apology, that he will lose his tongue. That escalated quickly. Bennett loosens his hand enough for the man to spit out an "I'm sorry," and he tells him not to come back and releases him so that the man can.
GTFO.
Yeah. Bennett grabs his coat and his cufflinks and walks out of the shop. Harper's full of questions, but Callista assures her that she has no idea. They go about their shift. We learn the senator was on trial for killing his secretary, and the judge found him innocent. Callista even had to take the stand with Bennett cross examining her, which she felt that he did harshly. After her shift, Callista walks home. Hayden follows her in the dark. She makes an unexpected stop into a bar. Callista is trying to get another job, and the sleazy bar just might be a quick option. When she leaves, Hayden makes sure that they know hiring her is not an option. Even Hayden himself can recognize what started as morbid fascination has grown out of control for him. Back home at his penthouse, Hayden plugs in the flash drive and starts to go through it. He sees all the info from the trial, how the secretary was found dead in the senator's bed, pregnant with his child. Hayden thought it was an open and shut case and had prosecuted it firmly. The senator was acquitted, though, his daughter giving him an alibi. Hayden finds a photo from the night in question of Callista's neck with handprint bruises and her father holding her hair back to take a photo of it. Hayden realizes that her father was with her that night, that the alibi was true. He questions if he destroyed and killed an innocent man. He's so meticulous about his research and being sure, staying true to his moral code. He calls his hacker and asks him to look into it and to look into hospital records on that date to see if Callista was even seen. Zach, the hacker, clicks away and then says nothing. Either it never happened or someone went to a lot of trouble to bury it. Hayden tells him to look into it. The next day, while Callista's at work, Mr. Bennett comes into the coffee shop and says he's there to talk to her. She says, no way. And he returns, are you saying you don't want to find your father's killer? She comes out to sit with him. He explains that he ran into her PI who knew that he had lost the trial and thought he would be interested with the info. Callista says she's not going to work with Bennett. No way. He gives her his card in case she changes her mind. After her shift at the Sugar Cube, Callista heads to the same bar, TNA, to start working. There's a different bartender on, and she explains to him that the previous night's guy hired her and told her to come in tonight. She changes into their skimpy uniform and gets to work. At her first table, the men there are already teasing her and offering her money for more. She declines and goes to walk away when one grabs her hair.
Absolutely fucking not.
Absolute, right?
This is why we choose the bear.
Right? Bennett appears out of nowhere, grabbing the man's hand and bending it back so he can release Callista. The other men around the table start to rise, and Bennett says, this does not concern you. Only this fool who touched what doesn't belong to him. She's mine. He tells the man to apologize. The guy's like, to her? She should have expected a little friendliness in a place like this. You should expect to get fucked in the ass in jail, buddy. Bear. Every time. There. You can practically hear the sigh as Bennett says, why do people refuse to do what they're told? And wrenches back the guy's hand further until he falls to the floor, snapping his thumb. Bennett slams his foot into the man's palm, grinding until blood appears, telling him once again to apologize. The man manages to jumble out something between sobs, and Bennett lets him go, taking off his jacket and putting it onto Callista, saying, come with me. Outside, Bennett lets her know she no longer works there.
I was singing
What were you singing?
our vagination song.
Oh.
You said come with me, and then my brain, the
Come
ADHD
with
brain.
me. We haven't done that one in a while.
No. Sorry. Woo.
She no longer works there. She tells him that he doesn't understand how much she needs this job. He says, "You need me, not this fucking job." Whoa there, buddy. This is a little intense. 0 to 60.
You think? Okay, listen, from here on out, every interaction just goes from 0 to 60 every time.
Yeah.
Like, calm your titties.
Yeah. He tells her to get into his car. Callista is stunned by all of what just transpired. I think we all are. And he manages to get her into the vehicle and buckled while she's dazed. He tells her to stop looking at him like she wants to jump his bones. She says if she's looking at him odd, it's with fear. He says fear is healthy, but doesn't stop you from getting hurt. Callista asks if he wants to hurt her. He says sometimes. She asks why.
At least the man is honest.
Very true. Bennett says, "You've ruined me, Miss Green." She says if he's going to talk like that, at least use her name. He says, "I agree, Callie." She admits no one's ever called her that, and he declares no one else will. He asks for her address to drive her home. They pull up to her place, and he asks if she's going to be cooperative. She she goes to start in with Mr. Bennett, but he interrupts, saying to call him Hayden. Dun dun dun. Who saw that coming? Everyone. He lies and says if she answers one question, she will never have to see him again. He asks her to tell him what really happened the night of the photo in her file. Callista says she can't and says goodnight, leaving the car and heading into her apartment. Apparently, nothing should surprise us, and this should not surprise anyone, but Hayden has cameras in Callista's apartment. So he opens
That's
up
that
the
kind
app.
of a it's that kind of a story.
Yep. He opens up the app on his phone to watch her shower and get ready for bed, and then he watches her pleasure herself before falling asleep. And not being able to help himself, he gets off along with her. Then he goes into her place once she's asleep and steals her underwear and takes the necklace she was wearing off, undoes it to separate a lone pearl to leave on her nightstand to symbolize how she forced him to come for her and that it will be a placeholder until he can give her a pearl necklace with his cock. The next day, Hayden pays the bar manager a little visit. Seems his texts show it wasn't a mix up, but that the guy deliberately went against Hayden's warnings not to hire Callista. Hayden has a nice little chat with him that ends with Hayden pinning the dude's hand to the bar top before setting the bar on fire with the dude in it. So that's cute. Fun for all involved. A week after the bar job attempt incident, Callista is feeling scared. She feels like someone is watching her, like someone keeps coming into her apartment. No.
No way.
Her necklace went missing, and she's woken up to 8 pearls left for her in the last week. Harper tries to convince her she needs a security system, but Callista is super broke. Callista wonders if she can sell the info Hayden wants to him and help herself out of this mess. I just feel like that entire thought process is strange
Is
right
that
from
the
the
only
get-go.
part of her thought process that is strange to you? Because
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
everything she does is weird.
Absolutely not. She uses the business card he gave her to call from the Sugar Cube's phone. His secretary doesn't let her through, though. Harper says she will cover for her that Callista needs to go try to show up at his office to talk to him. The secretary is shocked when Hayden agrees to see her and then says she can always be seen, that she is someone of great importance. Callista is also bewildered. They head into a room to talk, and Callista asks how important it is for him to have the info that he asked for. Hayden says very, that the case on the senator was one of the very few he has lost, and then he wound up dead, and now he's determined to see it through. She says that she's willing to help, but at a price. He asks how much. She tries and asks for 1,000. I mean,
Okay, first of all, that's lowballing it. I would ask for way more than that. 1,000 is the safe option. You go high and then you casually go lower. That's how you
that
negotiate.
was her highball. She was like, at first she was like, "Do you think maybe I can get 500 out of him? I'm gonna go for it and ask for 1,000."
Don't care. Looks rich. Hurt his pockets. Duh. Ask for 1 million. He probably would have given her 1 million, to be
He
honest.
probably would have. He agrees, knowing he would have paid much, much more. Hayden says that he has conditions, that he doesn't like to be kept waiting. So she needs to answer calls and respond to texts promptly. She admits that she doesn't have a phone. He will get her one within 24 hours. He gives her paper and asks for her bank info and picks up his phone and calls his banker and tells the guy to wire $10,000 to her. She's like, why? He says they will do this his way and both get what they want. Hayden says, now let's discuss the events of June 24th. She tells him how she was at a children's shelter baking for a charity event that was to take place the following day. Callista says she forgot to eat and passed out. Callista says that she called her father. He asks if she was taken to a hospital. She doesn't want to answer. He asks about the bruises on her neck. She says she can't do this and to take his money back, and she bolts for the door. He manages to get there before she opens it and scoops her up, taking her to the couch, holding her on his lap, helping her breathe through her panic. When she's calm, she asks how he knew how to help, and he admits that he helped his mom when he was younger. She had drug problems, which would make the panic attacks worse. The next day at work, a new phone is delivered to Callista with Hayden's contact already programmed. She texts Hayden and then shuts the phone off for a minute to be a brat, because she can. She gets distracted, though, by her ex-fiance walking through the door. He dumped her when the trial started to be able to save face. Harper tells him exactly where he can shove it, and he huffs out the door.
I'm gonna be honest, I kind of wish we had more about this fiance situation, but that's me.
It was kind of black and white to me. I didn't care about the dude.
I mean, I guess.
I wish yeah, I don't know.
Either give us a little bit more about him or just don't include him at all. Like,
Yeah, I
if
just
you're
felt like
gonna
he
only have him for
needed to
three
be.
seconds, then there's no point of having him in the
Yeah,
story.
I didn't feel like he needed to be included, but
That's the only nitpicky, I guess. I don't
yeah.
know if I had more nitpicky. I don't remember.
Harper convinces Callista to go out dancing and drinking with her for the evening. They have a great time dancing. Callista's careful to watch each step of her drink so that she knows it's safe. They notice a couple hot men noticing them, and Harper says that she better get a guy's number. Callista turns her phone on to 13 texts and 5 missed calls from Hayden. Oops. She gets another message asking if she's having a good time out as the men start to come over. And she quickly types out, yes, talk to you later. And her and Harper greet the men. They start talking together when she gets another message. Who are you with? And then another, I'm coming to get you. She types back boundaries that they can talk tomorrow. They get into it a little via text with him telling her to stop drinking and her telling him to leave her be. She's talking to someone and him threatening that someone if he touches her. To which she tells him to fuck off. She puts the phone away and starts to dance with one of the men whose name is Levi. They're dancing and he asks if he can kiss her. She nods, needing to get Hayden out of her head, only for Hayden to appear behind Levi, yanking him away from Callista. Levi shouts, what the fuck? And Hayden reaches for his cufflinks, pulling an oh fuck from Harper, who came right over with the commotion. She knows what that means. Hayden tells Callista that he warned her as he hands her the cufflinks. She gets in the middle, trying to stop him. He says she's beautiful when she begs, but she needs to learn that he means what he says. We do like a man with follow through.
Yeah, yeah, we do.
She grabs his shirt, reaches up, and kisses Hayden. It takes a moment, but then he's kissing her back deeply. When they're breathless and come up for air, she distracts him again from Levi, who can't seem to take a hint or keep his fucking mouth shut, and tells him, let's go.
It's because he's a man.
With his tiny little man brain.
And his tiny little man feelings. He
And
does
probably
not
his tiny
have,
little man penis.
yeah, he does not have good kenergy. Haven't used
No.
that word in a
Where is
while.
his Kenergy?
I don't know. It's not
It's too
here.
bad.
He can't feel all this kenergy.
Callista says goodbye to Harper, and Harper lets them go with a warning to Hayden not to hurt her. When Callista notices the car is not heading in the direction of her apartment, she tells Hayden so, and he tells her he's taking her home. He tells her he wants to possess more than her secrets. He wants to possess her. She tells him you can't own a person? He says he begs to differ. She suddenly feels the very real need to escape, and at the next red light, she bolts from the car. Oh, look, we're going to play his favorite game. It's called Chase. She runs and runs until she is out of breath and finds herself in an alley with Hayden at the end of it. He tells her she's only delaying the inevitable. She says she has to try. He tells her she belongs to him, that there's no escaping this. Dude, it's been like 2 days in her
Listen,
world.
he just
I know
says,
for
"You
you it's
belong
been
with
over a
me."
month, but and he expects her to be like, okay, Taylor Swift style.
Listen, I get it.
He knows there's no escaping because he's tried. And then as he's closing the distance, pinning her to the wall, he gently starts to kiss her as she slowly yields for him. He trails his fingers down her body and then starts to finger her, then brings her to orgasm and says, now that I've caught you, I intend to keep you. When he puts her back in the car, he puts the child lock on so she can't escape again. When they arrive at his penthouse, Callista says she doesn't think it's a good idea for her to be there, that it's not safe for him. She admits that she has a stalker. She tells him the story, including the necklace with the pearls, and how the necklace is or was practically the only thing she has left from her father. So she knows that she didn't just misplace it. Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. This little micro trope, man. I have a stalker. I don't want to put you in danger. Oh, you have a stalker? Then I need to keep you safe with me. I'm your stalker.
Yeah, sir.
I love this shit.
Oh, I know you do.
He isn't worried. Gee, I wonder why you're not worried, buddy. And carries her into his bedroom. She's fascinated by a photo displayed on the wall of a woman, but her identity is clouded. Hayden says that the woman in the photo changed his life. Maybe there's still a little alcohol left in her system because Callista feels jealous and suddenly wants the photo ripped off the
Of a
wall
picture.
and some connection he has to the woman in the picture. He tells her that she doesn't need to worry about her stalker there, that his security is the best. She asks for a glass of water, so they go to the kitchen and get one, and she tells him that they need to set some boundaries, that she's assuming he tracked the phone he gave her, and he can't be doing that shit. He says he needs to know that she's safe, that he's never felt this way before, and he doesn't know how to deal with it, except make sure
He
that she's safe and cared for at all times.
he literally said bet.
Yeah. Somehow, these words melt her a little, though, and doesn't scare her like normal people. And she whispers the words elite healthcare. And at his confusion, she clarifies that this is the name of the clinic that she went to that night. Hayden asks why she's telling him now. We're all wondering that. No, we're not. Just kidding. Callista tells him that she's tired of running from him. You just started. Tired of pretending her feelings will fade if she avoids them. She tells him maybe it's best that they don't kiss or anything else until they figure out the father's murder, and Hayden is able to see all the info. He says he can agree to that under conditions.
Knowing full well this man
Man
himself
murdered her
murdered
father
her dad and is her stalker.
and is her stalker. Yeah, it's great. He's walking a fine line here, you know. He says to move in with him to protect her from the stalker, that he will hire a personal bodyguard for when he cannot be with her, and that once he finds her father's killer, she will give herself to him completely.
Here's the thing with that. It's like slightly manipulative, but at the same time, how does he think she's gonna feel when she finds out that he murdered the dad? And he's gonna be like, well, now you owe me sex, bitch. And she's gonna be like, what?
He never planned to
You?
tell her. He probably had a backup plan.
I mean, I guess so, but like, bro.
She says that she can agree if he can agree to respect her choices and not dictate what she does. Her time is her time.
Good
Yeah.
luck. Good luck with that.
I don't know how that's going to go. He
Well,
says as long as it
well,
doesn't
we do
involve
know how that's gonna go.
I see how this is gonna go.
Not well, it's gonna go bad.
Yeah. Says as long as it doesn't involve another man. She asks for 72 hours to make a final decision. Hayden shows Callista back to the bedroom so that she can get some sleep, and he heads to his home office to resist the urge to touch her. He calls Zach and tells him to look at all the files at Elite Healthcare on June 24th. Zach finds the file marked under a 40-year-old male. He tells Hayden that it says Callista had high levels of GHB in her system. Hayden is so wound and angry, he starts destroying his office, not stopping until he hears a voice on the other side of the door asking if he's okay. Callista comes in and sees the destruction and says, "You know." Hayden just nods. Callista says, "I knew you'd look at me differently. I was hoping you would still want me, but I was wrong," and then turns and leaves. Hayden catches up to her in the hallway, telling her she's wrong, that it just makes him angry that it happened and he can't fix it. He tells her that she's going to need to tell him the who's and the what's so he can make whoever responsible pay. He brings her back to his bed, telling her she needs to get some sleep right now. Callista asks him to stay with her. She wakes to a note from him. He had an early court case, but he left clothes for her, and if she likes that style, he'll order more, and that he called her out of work and she needs to stay and rest for the day. She swallows her irritation about work and texts him to thank him for the clothes. She sees a bunch of missed texts from Harper detailing Harper's night and how her morning is going at work, so she decides to go see her. Harper and Callista swap stories from the night before, and Callista tells Harper about Hayden's move in proposal. Harper wonders if it just might be the right move with Callista's stalker problem. Listen, here's the thing. Like, bitch, aren't you supposed to be Team Callista at all times? And like,
She
I
maybe
get where you're
okay,
coming
so
from, but
it's
like,
potentially because he has the money, so he has the security, so it would make sense.
I know, but like, I need somebody
Maybe
to
she
be
got
the
good
voice of,
vibes from him.
I need somebody to be the voice of reason for me,
Listen, sometimes it's
not
about the
like
vibes.
the voice of crazy. I felt like Harper was just the voice of crazy all the time.
I mean, Harper was the voice of Dick.
Yeah, actually.
The voice of Dick.
Yeah.
To be fair,
She
it
was
was kind of
young,
like,
I get it, but
well, but at the same time, she's like, he's an attorney, he has a lot of money. Harper, I mean, not Harper,
he clearly comes
is
to your
obsessed with her.
defense.
And Callista doesn't really take her own safety and stuff. She didn't have a goddamn cell phone.
I know. She doesn't
Which, by the
obviously
way,
put
most fucking I understand that you're like off grid, but
she
Harper made
doesn't
a very
put
valid
into
point. She was like, "What if
consideration
you
any
need
of
to
her
die?
own
What
safety.
if you
Yeah.
need to dial 911? What if there's an emergency?" So, like, as far as safety goes, it made more sense for Harper to agree. Like, okay, yeah, probably a good
Yeah.
idea. But also, yeah, on the same side of that, she hasn't known this man for very long, and Harper had weird feelings about him in the beginning.
Right.
But like, I don't know, Dick,
I think she just felt like
ride that dick,
her friend
baby.
needed Dick. Yeah, I think that was her only motivation,
Harper very
honestly.
much needed Dick.
Yeah. I think she just felt like she wanted her friend to get Dick too. Like yeah, like you said, ride that dick. After Hayden gets done at court, he picks Callista up at the Sugar Cube and takes her to a fancy restaurant. After they order, Hayden points out that Callista is nervous. She basically says any mouse would be around a cat, and he says he prefers to think of her as a bird. She says that still puts him as the predator and not to put her in a cage. He says if it's for her safety. She says this conversation is not helping her decision. Perhaps he should take her back to her apartment after dinner. He tells her none of her things are there. Her personal items have been moved to his house, his home, and her furniture donated. She obviously does not look happy. So he adds if she chooses to return to her apartment, it will be at a different location, fully furnished. Yeah, like you're gonna have let that happen, buddy. She tells him his methods need work, you think? But she does want him, so she tells him she will say yes to him, not the proposal or the waiting, just to him and what comes with that. They barely make it into the elevator of his building before they're on each other. Hayden drops down and yanks her underwear down and goes down on her, telling her she better finish before the elevator gets to their floor. She does, and they stumble inside, and he kisses her against the wall, ripping her clothes that are in his way and getting rid of his. He picks her up, works his way inside her, fucking her hard against the wall, moving to the couch until they finally finish, and Hayden pulls out, coming on her chest. They shower and then head to bed. 3 days later, Hayden hasn't initiated anything intimate between them since they had sex, and Callista is looking to change that. If he's thinking she needs to heal and have time, she doesn't want it. She's naked, waiting for him to come home, and decides to get something of his from his closet to wear to make it better. She's feeling his favorite jacket when she feels something odd in the pocket and discovers it's more of the pearls. Was he manipulating her the whole time? No, no way.
No.
Never. That would never happen. She tries to stop her crying with the resolve to face the monster when he walks through that door. Hayden is at his desk at work, frustrated at not finding leads to help him with who attacked Callista. His own mother died from a pill that is known to cause date rape drug symptoms, and he hasn't been able to find those responsible for that. He can't have another one. He goes over Callista's medical report again, noting the description of the drug in her system sounding familiar. He grabs the coroner's report for the senator's secretary, and there it is. The phrasing, very similar. Now he's wondering if it's a coincidence, that if it's even the same drug found in his mother's system. All unknown substances with date rape symptoms. He races home, needing to be with Callista and know she's safe. When he walks in the door, he sees her looking at him like a wounded animal, and then she thrusts her hand out with the pearls inside, asking, "Where did you get these, Hayden?" And that's book one. We continue with book two, Now You're Mine. We pick off exactly where the first book ended, with Callista asking Hayden where he got the pearls. He tells her she already knows, but that it doesn't matter until he finds out who assaulted her. Keeping her safe is his priority. She asks, how could she be kept safe when he's the one she was afraid of? He said he was protecting her. He was protecting her then, too. Who knows what could have happened to her on those dark streets? That the necklace was to stop himself from taking her. She asks if he was ever going to tell her. He says no. Callista asks how she can trust him now. She says she needs time to figure it out, if she can even move past this. He tells her not getting past it isn't an option, that she can run, but he will always chase her. She tells him he may have her body, but she chooses who has access into her mind, that there's nothing more to talk about right now, since they're at an impasse. Hayden tells her she needs to eat and to get some food for her. When she's done, he says they should get some sleep. Callista is firm she needs her space and goes to sleep in the guest room, ignoring Hayden's arguments. Hayden torments himself listening to Callista cry herself to sleep, but trying to respect her space. When it's quiet, though, he picks the lock and carries her while she's sleeping back to his bed. When she wakes up in the morning, she goes through a cycle of emotions before Hayden, whose limbs are entangled in hers from sleep, says they need to talk. He tells her how it was the same drug found in the secretary's system as hers, that there's a connection. She can't think clearly right now. She wants space and tells him she needs to leave. He says she needs to promise not to run away and that she needs to agree to let him keep her safe. He starts to move his hands down her body, telling her to promise him. He starts to finger her, and she manages to get out that she wants something first. She says she wants him to pay for her to be able to go back to college. What the whiplash? Where the fuck did that come from?
I have no idea, dude. No idea.
Like,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, you just had all this happen. You're full of emotions, and you can't think because this man's playing with your body, and you know you can't handle that. And then you're like, I'll let you protect me if you also pay for me to go to college? Like, what? It was just weird. It was weird.
It was a wild time too.
He, yeah, he obviously says done because, I mean, he'd give her anything that she asks for. I mean, except for letting her go. And he brings her to orgasm. Callista gets out of bed. She has to go to a doctor's appointment that she made for birth control before she found out about the pearls. He finds out that she was going to a clinic because she couldn't afford health insurance before, so he makes some calls and gets her into a different office. Eye roll. He tells her the bodyguard, Sebastian, will be going with her. She sighs and says, I figured, and gets into the car. Sebastian says, Good morning, Mrs. Bennet, to her. Dude, you need to calm down, my boy. After her appointment, Callista heads to work. Someone delivers a package for her while she's there. Inside is her underwear. that went missing the night she was attacked with a note saying, Will wet ink Ken. Callista's panic over Callista's panic overtakes her and she goes down, fainting right into the glass display case. Harper's freaking out. Sebastian has called Hayden and an ambulance. Callista's confused upon waking, but then the panic floods back. Sebastian tells her not to move. Then Hayden is bursting through the door with sirens heard coming from the distance. He demands to know what the fuck happened. Sebastian clues him in, telling him to stand back as the paramedics rush in. Callista passes out as they move her off the glass and her blood flows more. She wakes up in a hospital to hearing Hayden on the phone, first with his assistant getting as many things at work cleared as possible, and then with Zach asking him to look into the package. Talking about the package spikes her heart rate, alerting him to her being awake. She learns needed some stitches, but luckily doesn't have a head injury. She feels like she might as well get it over with. He's going to ask at some point and tells him about the underwear in the package, but that she has no idea about the note. Harper rushes in, scooting Hayden out of the way. Hayden excuses himself to wait outside and give them a minute. Harper wants to know what the fuck happened. Callista opens up and tells her about the night of her assault. Wow, that was a fast. Goodness. Okay. That night, Hayden takes Callista home. He confesses how seeing her like that at the Sugar Cube wrecked him, and he's having a hard time. He kisses her, just needing to touch her, to feel her, things escalating until they make it to the bed and shed their clothes. Hayden climbs up on her and shoves his dick in her mouth, so that's fun. She doesn't mind, though, for some reason, and then he makes his way down her body to fuck her. I mean, hey, I'm all for like pleasing whoever, but like she just got out of the hospital and your first thought is like climb up her body and shove your dick in her mouth. I'm just
Well,
cool,
she's hot.
whatever.
She is his soulmate, Ariel. You gotta understand.
Hayden is
Dick
very
needs place.
Hayden is very glad she went to the appointment that he set up, where the doctor, under his instructions, gave Callista a saline shot instead of the birth control shot. And he fucks the shit out of her, losing control a bit. He asks her to tell him that she loves him, but she returns with, And how do you feel? He explains he can't allow that. It's like the ultimate weakness or some shit. She tells him, Then tell me you don't love me. He simply manages to end up getting out that he doesn't want to love her. When Callista wakes the next morning, her mind is swimming with their sweet second round after their conversation and Hayden's whispering pleads not to make him love her as he gently took her. She notices the photo of the woman above his bed again, and she gets up determined to get an answer. She finds Hayden in the kitchen and asks who's in the picture. He's amused and asks if she's jealous. She scoffs and asks again. He tells Callista that it's her in the photo. She runs to go look at it again. She asks how long ago this was. He tells her a week after her father's funeral. She's like, You're saying you've been following me for months? Yeah, he has. He tells her he needed to know her. Hayden tells her to pack her bags for someplace warm. Someone obviously sent her that package to scare her, and now he's going to do what she promised to let him do and keep her safe. She brings up her job, her life. She can't just go at the drop of a hat. He said she could start enrolling in school. Like, she's got things to do.
Even though she's been at his house like this whole time. I'm just saying.
She was going to work, kind of.
Kinda.
Every time it didn't end well, but yeah. He
Mm.
tells her that when he gets back from court, she's boarding that plane, packed or not, even if he has to carry her. While he's gone, Callista talks it out with Harper over text, who tells her taking a breather while they get to the bottom of it sounds like a good idea because Harper again is pro Dick. Hopped up on pain meds, Callista naps most of the day. When she wakes up, it's dark and Hayden is home and seems to have been watching her sleep for a long time. She didn't pack deliberately. He says they will leave in the morning. They eat, and she's still wiped from the meds, so she goes to take a quick shower before going back to bed when she sees it. A bandage on her hip. She peels it off to reveal a tattoo of Mrs. Bennet written in script. What the actual fuck?
So now we've gotten to the completely unhinged portion of our book, folks.
She takes a breath, not willing
Second
to.
book we've read where they have just tattooed someone unwillingly.
I'm surprised it's only two, really. I read a lot more than
Honestly,
that
with
I
your
think it's
choices
happened.
of books, I'm also
Yeah,
surprised.
because I was gonna say I've seen that happen way more than twice. She takes a breath, not willing to give him the satisfaction of knowing, of acknowledging it at the moment, and puts the bandage back on. When she's done cleaning up, instead, she tells him they need a timeout on the sex. She has realized that it's difficult for her to say no or to think when his hands are on her. She tells him she needs her emotions unclouded to decide if she can forgive him or not. He says fine, that it's in her nature to forgive him, plus, he thinks she'll cave faster than him. In the morning, she tries to boycott leaving. He just hauls her over his shoulder in her PJs and brings her to the car. She's going. She sleeps most of the 8-hour flight on the private jet. They get into a car and drive 2 hours to a marina and board a boat. Everyone calling them Mr. and Mrs. Cole as they go. They end up at a vacation home on an island. The boat driver informs them that groceries are scheduled to be delivered every other day as requested, and then he leaves them. Hayden lets Callista know that none of the staff will help her escape and that she should try to enjoy herself while they're there. Hayden checks in with Zach, who couldn't find much on the package origin. It kept getting rerouted and here and there. And Zach is getting a bit frustrated by the note. It could spell out twinkle, twinkle, but that's just weird. Hayden says, wait, no, those tablets have a star on them. He knows from his mother and tells Zach to go from that angle. Hayden finds Callista and tells her about the message, confirming his suspicions of a death threat, telling about the connection with his mom, and she asks what now. He says Zach will keep searching for answers and that they will stay here, where it's safe. He unzips his suitcase and takes out a box, giving it to Callista, telling her that they are all there and accounted for. She opens it to find her restored necklace. Hayden apologizes for taking it. She gives him a brief kiss and thanks. She asks if she can have another gift, maybe some clothes. He says she is the one who chose not to pack. This is the consequence of her actions. She tells him goodnight.
It gives me like my Dark Romeo when she was refusing to pack. He was like, pack, and she didn't. She went to sleep instead, and he goes, well,
Right.
now you get
Oh,
nothing.
yeah. I know it reminds me a lot because she's also in her pajamas too. Like, well,
Yes.
now you get nothing. Yeah. Consequences of your action. At least he gave her money to buy new clothes, but
I
yeah.
mean,
The next morning, she comes out to the kitchen naked. He wants to play this game. Fine. She'll play. He tries to resist looking and he gives her a laptop. She had said she wanted to register for school and to start taking classes. Now she doesn't have to wait just because she's on the island. She goes outside and powers it on to find the university website is the only accessible site. Her info is already filled in except her major and classes. She was a communications major prior to her father's death, but isn't sure that's what she wants anymore. So she picks a bunch of different gen ed classes that sound interesting. Harper goes to the same school, that's why she insisted on that one. So she finds her profile and sends her a message telling her that she just enrolled. When everything is registered, she closes the computer and takes a nap. She wakes to Hayden going down on her and then leaving. And so it begins. She chats with Harper on the computer. She asks Harper to ask her mom about the pill with a star on it since she works in the pharmaceutical industry. And she has random run ins with Hayden pleasuring her. She told him no sex, so apparently she should have included anything because Mr. Lawyer is going to technicality her. 3 weeks go by like this, but then for some reason, Harper stops responding for over 48 hours. Callista is worried, so she asks Hayden for help. He agrees to help picking up his phone, and he asks if she needs anything else. She admits she's tired of fighting and kisses him, interrupted by a chime from his phone. Who the fuck has their sound on their phone these days?
surprisingly, a good amount of people, Spencer does. I do not. I don't
I
think I
never
have
have
heard
my
the
phone
sound.
on.
I don't think I have. Are you kidding me? My child has do not disturb on. Like, she is the amount of quiet that you can possibly get so that no one contacts her. Honestly, she does it because she watches a lot of like shows and stuff. But like, Spencer has his sound on, and I'm like, why?
I don't think I've flipped that switch since I got this phone.
I think I have briefly first. I don't remember why I had it on, but normally I don't. And it's funny because back in like high school and stuff, I had that sound on because you could
Because you
get
couldn't,
sounds and you
yeah,
could have like music and like cool shit, and now you can't
yeah.
do the cool things.
Psh, it's too much work. Or you have to
God
pay
damn it,
for it.
technology all went backwards and
Yeah.
forwards at the same time.
It's
Make
a
it
pain in
make
the ass.
sense.
It's like cable
I
and
would
the
have
TV and shit and
Taylor
streaming
Swift
shit.
set. I would have I Can Do It With a Broken Heart as my ringtone.
Yeah, or can you imagine? You need to calm down every single time somebody texts you. See, that's the type of shit we had back then. They don't do that shit
Yeah.
now.
No.
Copyright.
Whatever.
Copyright my fucking face.
Lame.
Huh.
Now that we just aged ourselves.
He checks his phone and tells her that Harper's safe. She asks what he's not telling her. Apparently, Harper was in a hit and run accident while crossing in a crosswalk, and she has a concussion and a fractured wrist. Callista says they need to go home. He tells her no. Harper's at the best hospital, but he won't risk Callista's life. She says, please, I'll do anything. He stops and thinks, and then says, okay, forgive me. You already have, or you wouldn't have been about to fuck me, but you need to admit it to yourself and to me. You know, she says, right now I'm willing to forgive you. And he tells her they'll be gone within the hour. That
He
was
is a
easy.
man of his word.
Yeah. The plane lands and they take a quick detour to the penthouse so Callista can change. Gee, imagine that. You don't want to go in your birthday suit to the hospital or your pajamas?
Nah.
And then they're at the hospital. Harper is elated to see her and seems to be doing well. They visit until Callista starts to yawn, and Hayden insists on bringing her home to sleep, that she can return bright and early. Back at the penthouse, they finish what they started before they received the news about Harper. As Callista finishes, she screams out that she loves him. Hayden asks if she meant it. She says yes and asks, what about him? He says, I didn't want to love you, Callie, but fuck me, I do. Callista is at the hospital first thing the next morning to see Harper. Harper's mom joins them this morning as well. She offers condolences about Callista's father, saying her and her company Astra RX worked with him on occasion. Callista doesn't remember that, which is odd, but she makes a note about the name for later and refocuses on Harper. The mom heads off to work, letting Harper know that she gets released the next morning. The next day, Callista goes to chat with her father's old campaign manager despite Sebastian's protests about not supposed to be going anywhere except the hospital. She threatens to tell Hayden that Sebastian touched her if he doesn't cooperate. Sebastian sees a no-win situation here. The manager tries to deny the senator having any involvement with Astra RX, but Callista tells him she has no time for lies. He keeps denying, and she gets mad, picks up his letter opener, threatens him, and uses Sebastian as a threat. She's like, I'll sick this guy on you. He's Bratva. Girl. The manager,
Listen, sometimes you need to use what you have.
it works. I mean, the manager admits that the senator had dealings with Astra RX, specifically with the owner, Mr. Russell. They helped fund his campaign in exchange for his help getting drugs past the FDA that was having trouble getting there. That the senator tried to distance himself as he learned and grew, and finally stopped dealing with them about a year ago. Callista pockets the letter opener and they leave. She convinces Sebastian to take her to Hayden's office next, as long as she tells Hayden that it was her idea. He does not want to keep getting in trouble. Hayden is happy to see her. Callista tells him all about what she learned about her father. He sends her home, telling her that they will get to the bottom of everything. At a red light on the way home, Callista sees a little girl she used to help at the shelter all the time. But she isn't with her mother, which is very strange. Callista doesn't even think. She just leaves the car, going after the girl who turned down an alley. When Callista turns the corner, she finds a man in a mask holding a gun to the girl's head, saying, come with me, or she's dead. Callista nods, and when she's close enough, the man shoves the little girl to swap for Callista. Callista tells her to find a police officer to help her. Then Sebastian appears and says, let her go! The masked man shoots Sebastian and yanks Callista further down the alley. She tries to fight him, but he pistol whips her, making things go blurry as he drags her. Desperate, she bites his wrist and then tries to wrench free. The man tackles her to the pavement, slamming her head, and then picks her up and puts her into a vehicle, and she succumbs to the darkness. That was a dun 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 in Crystal's head.
Da-dun. Sorry.
It was a visual in your head.
Sometimes I forget we're on camera.
When she wakes up groggy as fuck, she realizes she's been drugged. She has a hard time moving anything, and there's a man in a suit with her in what seems to be a dilapidated room. He tells her putting the redhead in the hospital worked in drawing them out. He was having trouble finding them. He says he hasn't forgotten her, that he knew her father very well. She deducts that this is Mr. Russell. He confirms and says once Mr. Bennett arrives that all of her questions will be answered. Hayden gets a call from Mr. Russell saying he has something that belongs to Hayden and that he has 1 hour to be at the address he's sending him, or Miss Green will be delivered in pieces. The address is his childhood home, where his mother died. He pulls up, and Mr. Russell lets him in and tells him to make himself at home because you're a skis ball.
Yeah.
Hayden finds Callista lying motionless on the floor with a weak pulse, but at least it's there. Hayden tells Russell he will kill him. Russell says, like you did to Senator Green. He says that he planted clues that led Hayden to believe that the senator killed his secretary when it was actually him. Callista wheezes out a why. Russell explains that he had trouble putting his drug on the market before the senator came along, but that didn't stop him from putting it on the streets, which is how Hayden's mother came into the picture. She wasn't the only one to overdose. He says after that debacle, he moved on to something else, a combination of a roofie and a Valium with the feeling of being on heroin. That Callista would know. This is her second time, the first at the Children's Center. Hayden asks Russell if he raped her. He says, I'm sure you'd like to know, but we have more important things to discuss. We never find out, by the way. He asks Hayden if he really thought he could get away with killing all those people. He says that Hayden kills the people he can't put behind bars the legal way, that Russell has lost millions to Hayden putting his drug dealers behind bars or in the ground. Russell points his gun at Callista and says, don't forget who has all the power here, that he's going to enjoy Hayden's suffering while she dies. I want to make note that all of a sudden, Callista's on the couch now when she was on the floor when Hayden walked in the room. So I'm going to pretend she's still on the floor.
Sounds good. Let's all be delusional.
Yeah, it was just, I don't, a weird minor. There wasn't, that was the only one I caught, but, I don't like those things. We know this. Callista, who had been slowly forcing her hand to cooperate and move into her jacket pocket as the men were talking, grips the letter opener, since apparently no one thought her a threat enough to search, and jams it into Russell's thigh as hard as she can. Because she's up high now, except, but whatever. Russell howls and Hayden lunges, tackling him to the ground, the gun falling to the floor. Callista tries to crawl to the gun as Hayden is punching Russell, snapping his head back. Hayden grabs the gun instead and points it at the door as the henchman kidnapper walks through and Hayden shoots him. Then he shoots Russell in each knee, saying, this should keep you here while I get Callista to the hospital. I'll be back to chat. So I wish that we got a scene in Hayden's point of view. This book was dual POV, but I wish we got a scene in Hayden's point of view of him going back and chatting with Russell, because there were so many unanswered questions in that concept that we didn't get, and that I think would have been cleared up by that scene.
Maybe, maybe not.
Possibly. Who knows? Callista wakes up in the hospital, a nurse telling her that they pumped her stomach and that she got lucky and that the baby is going to be just fine. Callista's like, I don't think you got all the drugs out. I heard baby.
Honestly, solid reaction to that. I do the same thing.
You should probably pump my stomach again. I
Yeah,
don't think you did it right the first time.
Maybe we didn't wait long enough, and like maybe I'm delusional still. I have to still be on drugs right now. Like there's no way you said baby.
The nurse confirms 4 weeks along. Callista tries to tell her she's on the shot, and the nurse says, well, that's only 94% effective. Nothing's 100%. You just might be in that small percentage. You know what's less, Callista? A saline shot. That's 0% effective. Just so you know. Food for thought. Callista asks her not to tell Hayden. She gets lost in her thoughts until Hayden appears, and Callista asks him about Sebastian and the little girl. Sebastian is healing, and the little girl has been reunited with her mother. She asks if Russell is dead. Hayden says yes. Callista says good. She asks about what she overheard. Hayden confirms he had all the evidence set up against her father planted by Russell, and that he fell for it, that he regrets what he did, but it also led him to her. After his mother died, he vowed to avenge any woman met with an end like that, but that he's truly sorry. Callista says she needs some time. The next morning, Callista discharges herself while Hayden is in court. She's not going to trust him to give her time. She catches a cab to the bank and
For good
withdraws.
reason,
Well,
though.
yeah. Withdraws her account in cash because he can track cards, and then goes to Harper's dorm room, which I just want to point out would be the first place I would look. None of this was logical on any end. Just saying. So 2 months later, and Callista's been doing her courses on Harper's
And
computer.
the only reason that we know it is 2 months later is when they discuss it, the thing. And I had to go back and be like, was it labeled as 2 months later? Was
No,
not.
it was a couple sentences into the
I want it.
into the chapter.
Okay, listen.
I know.
Label.
Yeah. They did that with all the time in this, but at least they told us versus having to like go through page after page after page. It was right at the beginning.
I thought I was going crazy.
No. But yeah, Callista's been doing her courses on Harper's computer and staying at her dorm, but midterms need to be taken in person. She's nervous to go out. During her last, just as she's finishing, the timer is replaced with, "I'll always chase you, Miss Bennett." So again, Harper's dorm is the first place I would have looked. I assumed he was being a good person and just giving her space, but he actually confesses he didn't find her for the first 6 weeks. So he was only being a good person for 2 weeks. It took him 6 weeks to figure out she was at Harper's dorm. That's the first place I would fucking look, you idiot.
Especially for this man who has been stalking her for so fucking long and has a
Right?
hacker to, like, you would assume. Like,
It
granted,
doesn't
yeah,
make any
she
sense.
definitely took herself off of, like, the grid and blah, blah, blah,
But
and,
that
like,
is
really
literally the first person I
I
would at
know.
least question.
I know, but, logic. Where? Where is she?
Harper urges her to go, but Callista says no, that she's tired of hiding, that it's time. She's ready to talk. She asks to borrow Harper's phone and texts Hayden to meet. She meets him at the penthouse and admits the time and space actually allowed her to process and understand. He tells her how much he missed her, and she tells him she's pregnant. He says, "Let's go," and drags her to the OBGYN, saying if it's true, it's the best day of his life. He needs to see. He needs to see this verified in his face. They get an ultrasound, and he takes her right home to fuck her. They tell each other they love each other. Hayden says he's never truly been happy until her, and he asks her to marry him. Callista says yes, and he takes her straight away to seal the deal. So, because of that, Harper's kind of like, what the fuck? You also need a real wedding. So, 2 years later, they do, in fact, have a real wedding with their daughter, who is named Harper because Harper insisted that that was the only way she was letting her go, was if she named her kid after her. Good thing it was a girl, I guess. So Harper and Harper are attending their big actual wedding. And that is the end of our book.
Need I remind you, this man killed her dad based on thinking he did something and not actually fully proving it. So she married him.
Her only family.
Anyways, so who was your favorite character?
Probably Hayden.
Really?
Yeah, he was amusing.
So we need to dial a therapist.
He was just amusing to read. Not that I liked him as a person. He was just amusing.
I honestly actually didn't mind Harper that much, to be honest. Kind of liked her.
It was like hit or miss depending on the chapter.
Yeah. Who was your least favorite?
We also didn't have a lot of characters, so.
No.
And the little characters we did have, I didn't really like them. Like I didn't like Harper's mom. I didn't like any of the politicians. I didn't like,
Well, that's true in my
right.
real life too.
Right?
Don't trust a politician, guys.
I didn't like the pharmaceutical
Please
guy,
vote.
obviously. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Please vote.
This is coming out at an opportune time. Please make sure that you're registered to vote. If you're in the United States, this is your civic duty and you need to do what's right. Also, I don't mean to be that person, but please vote as if you care about women or that you might want to have sex with a woman one day because she's going to check your voting history and she might choose to fuck you or not based on your voting history if you decided that she has rights or not. Thank you.
And we don't normally get political, and anytime we've gotten political, you guys actually have never heard it because we don't.
We edited
We
out. But
we edit it
for
out.
some
But
reason, we're in
this
some kind of
honestly,
weird dystopian moment in the United States that the rest of the world is
yeah,
laughing at us, and it's insane. I don't blame
but
them for
yeah,
laughing at us. It's crazy to be here.
it is literally like a fucking cartoon. We're living in a cartoon. We are in Toontown. But anyways, no. So we normally don't get political and normally like we try to keep all of that to ourselves, but it is extremely important, especially with the election coming up in November. Please vote. For the love of God, please vote. And as Ariel said, especially if you respect women, please.
Or
I
want
like
to
having
touch one day.
I like having rights, you
I
know.
watched this TikTok the other day
I
that
have a
said,
daughter.
yeah, right. Right. Yeah. If you have kids, come on. I watched this TikTok the other day that said that it was about this woman who was talking to this guy and he could not figure out why this other girl kept friend zoning him and would not take him seriously. And she goes, "Who did you vote for in the last election? Who do you plan to vote for in this election?" She goes, "Yeah, that's your problem. You might want to think about that because as long as you think about her like she's not a real person, she's not going to give you the time of day." And it's true.
Facts.
10 foot pole, 10 foot pole. Anywho,
Yeah.
honestly, I really didn't like Callista.
I didn't really like her either.
Sad to say,
And
but I didn't like her.
yeah. And honestly, like I know he's dead, but I didn't like her dad because he portrayed such a again though it goes with the politician thing. He portrayed such a different person to her and she was trying to
Hmm.
defend him all this time and be like, "No, he's actually a good dude." No, he very clearly is not. Yes, he made a mistake and he was trying to correct it before his death, but girl,
Hmm. But
please.
I mean, be open, really. But like, she just made such odd decisions all the time, and I just was not here for it.
She married the guy who killed her dad. Okay?
Not even that, just like all of her decisions were like so
Wild,
interesting. Yeah.
right?
Anywho, yeah.
Okay, so separately,
Yes,
book
this is a duet. However, I rated these separately.
so book 1 had a 4.1 on Amazon and a 3.7 on Goodreads.
I gave book one a 4 star. I actually enjoyed book one. It was interesting. It had all these cool little micro tropes that I like, and I was here
Hmm.
for it.
Book 1 was good. I also gave it a 4. Book 2 has a 4.0 on Amazon and a 3.6 on Goodreads.
I gave book two a 3 star rating. There was inconsistencies and some missing items, and it just kind of fell off a little bit for me.
I agree. I also gave it a 3 for the same reasons. And she freaking Callista's a mess, okay?
Yep.
Callista's a mess. How about a cucumber?
As for Cucumber, there wasn't anything freaky deaky or cool. There was plenty, I guess, in theory, but it wasn't anything to write home about.
I think
I gave,
there was more in book 2 than book 1, right?
yes, I gave it a cumulative 4.
I was gonna give it a 3. Survivability.
Well, I'm used to being broke, so I would be good on that part. I think I would make better choices in terms of stalker, so I think I would be okay.
I would also be fine. Sounds fab. Lovely.
Solid.
And that concludes our month, guys,
Yes.
and
So,
our wheel. So,
yes.
guess what?
Dun dun dun.
October.
Let's talk about October, shall we? Dun
Briefly.
dun dun. So, October is all about the Halloween slash fall vibes.
And we've lovingly called it Cocktober, but we did that also last year, and here we are.
It's
With
just because it's
cocks.
fun to say. Yeah. We are going to be giving you a themed book each week. And for our specials, some might be sweet fall themed, some might be horror or thriller, and some might just be weird. So stay tuned
And
to
we
find out.
have one book in there that was a request. And guess what? You're just going to have to guess what it is.
So stay tuned to find out each time what it's going to be. Next week, we will be starting with Pumpkin Everything by Beth Labonte. After calling off her fall wedding, horror novelist Amy Fox is left with a broken heart, a mega case of writer's block, and a serious aversion to all things pumpkin spice. Dude, I can relate. When she receives news that her grandfather has broken his wrist driving through a Dunkin' Donuts, literally through a Dunkin' Donuts, that has happened, unfortunately, quite a bit. Literally straight through the front windows, 500 miles away in her hometown of Autumnboro, New Hampshire, Amy has no choice but to return to check on him. If she doesn't make sure that he's back on his feet, Grandpa may be moved to assisted living, and Amy's beloved childhood home will be put on the market. Are you more worried about Grandpa or the house, lady? I have questions. Knowing she must return, Amy worries about the only thing worse than pumpkin spice, a reunion with Kit Parker, her childhood best friend, first love, and entire reason for skipping town in the first place. As the two reconnect, a second chance seems possible, if only Kit weren't holding on to a secret that might just unravel everything.
It is also a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, it says now a
So,
Hallmark Channel original movie. So we will have to look into that and see if we can find that.
yeah. So this will be fun. So no wheels for the rest of the year. We're just going to be telling you what book we're reading next because welcome to the chaos of the rest of the year.
And if you have requests for November, we will be up front and we are doing Double Stuff November again. And for December, we're doing holiday themed books. So keep that in mind. And then January, we'll be back in the wheel if you have regular requests.
Yes.
But make sure to keep reading.
And keep it smutty.
Ow, you little fuckerhead.